Welcome, everybody, and thanks for being with me this next hour. You're listening to Everyday Astrology with C.A. Brooks on Transcendental Tuesdays here on 12radio.com and also simulcasting on YouTube on the channel Everyday Astrology with C.A. Brooks. And I see some people are already in the house, so thank you very much. Hey, James and Renee and Leslie. Hey, thanks for coming and being here early today. We're still getting this together, but it seems like it's working out. So here's this transition that we've been talking about for a while over to YouTube. So there again, if you're over on Facebook, please join us over on YouTube if that's a possibility for you. And remember too that you can, because we're live streaming on YouTube, then these videos are always there. The shows are always there, so you can come and listen again or check them out later. But you are listening to Everyday Astrology. And on today's show, this is July 29th, 2025. And like usual, we are going to look at the week ahead. Now, today, though, our special focus is going to be the asteroid Chiron, because it's moving into its annual retrograde pattern on Wednesday, July 30th. Now, we usually don't give too much love and attention to this little asteroid, but I feel like the timing is right. It just kind of kept coming to me the last few weeks, and I thought, with it going retrograde, let's go ahead and talk about it. We're also going to take a look at Venus, which is moving into Cancer. And believe it or not, it's doing it the same day, Wednesday, July 30th. So there's other things going on this week astrologically that I think are worth checking out. And I hope that you will check those out in Mark's Power Peak, which is the digital newsletter that you can sign up for. You can subscribe for free. You can find that link on 12listen.com if you want to subscribe to that. And I do think it's really worth it, especially if you are into astrology or spirituality or tarot or any of those esoteric disciplines, because in my column you're going to find all the details for the week ahead, day by day, where's the moon, what's going on, but you're also going to find a number of articles written by other people on topics that are similar. So I hope that you will check that out, especially if you want to go back after the show and look for some specific details. So looking at the cosmic dance for the week of July 28th, we are going to start with Venus in Cancer. And as usual, as I was preparing the show, I thought, whoa, maybe I've got way too much material. I hope that's not true. But if it is, I want to assure you, I really do want to do the Chiron stuff. So if we don't get through all the Chiron stuff, we'll just slip it into next week. We will talk about it because I think it's pretty important. But let's start with Venus in Cancer, starting on July 30th. Venus, of course, is the planet of values. And I'd like to emphasize that because we have all these shortcuts in astrology. We call Venus the planet of love and romance and money and finances and resources and, who and what we find attractive. But ultimately, Venus is about what we value, what we think is important. But because of that, that's why it translates into wherever your Venus is by sign or by house in your astrology chart. If you look at that Venus, or if you look at where Venus is right now, what it tells you is what is the lens we're looking through? How do we think we make ourselves attractive? What is our strategy for attracting who and what we want into our lives? But why do we do that? Because we think it's valuable. So why does one person think, if you look at the way people dress, it's very fun to compare that with their Venus, because it just tells you, are they in jeans and a t-shirt? Are they in black leather? Are they in stiletto heels? Are they in motorcycle boots? What is it? And you can relate it right back to Venus in a particular sign and in a particular house. So Venus has been in Gemini. It's still there right now. And in Gemini, that's a sign of the twins. And so we've been light and breezy and social. And, in some ways, we just like to play the field because you know what Gemini wants? They want options. They like to talk. They like to connect. They like to gather information. But once we have Venus move into Cancer, which it's going to be there through August 25th. So, I mean, it's a short transit relatively. But when it goes into Cancer, that's a cardinal sign. Cardinal signs are strong, they're assertive, they're initiating, and they're action oriented. But this is a water sign. So it's sensitive, it's vulnerable, impressionable, intuitive, very creative. Cancer can also be very retentive. Cancers can be very protective of the past, and what's worth keeping from the past. It's about looking for attachment and warmth and nurturance and security. So, in many ways, Cancer, we call it the sign of mother because it has to do with caretaking and nurturing and protecting and developing something. So, our whole kind of tone changes from this very breezy, lighthearted Gemini to, you know what? I'm much more serious about my relationships. But remember too that Cancer is ruled by the moon. And that moon waxes and wanes every single month. The light grows and then the light is dispersed. So Cancer too can be very changeable, yet predictable. There's a predictability about that and a dependability. So although it's not an earth sign, it is a water sign, which makes it intuitive and sensitive. Cancer is relatively down to earth, especially about love and romance and partnerships and money and resources. They truly are. They're much more into, what I call the meat and the potatoes. They're not so much into the fancy stuff. Now, here again, we're talking about one particular sign. And in your chart and in everybody else's chart, there's lots of other factors that go into this. Like if your Venus is sitting next to Mars, well, there's definitely an energetic, inspirational power there that's different than in somebody else's chart that has Venus in Cancer not next to Mars. So remember, too, we're just talking about one piece of the puzzle, and there's lots of different pieces that all come together. But generally, Cancer likes to keep their commitments. In fact, I always think of Cancer, and when I'm looking at people's charts and working with people, this is a sign that I'm not going to say they never get divorced because that's not true, but they're less likely to get divorced than other signs. And the reason is because they're serious about those relationships. Once they make a commitment, it's really hard to break that commitment. So, those tides can go high and they can go low. There can be good times and there can be bad, but they're going to hang on to a commitment once they make it. They're going to be responsible and they're going to hang on to that commitment through thick and thin. So it takes a lot to get that kind of person to say, okay, I'm going to break this commitment. That's very, very different than some of the other signs. Right? Some of the other signs are saying, hey, I'll stay with you as long as I love you. I've actually heard people say that in their wedding vows. I'll stay with you as long as I love you. And I thought, whoop, that particular marriage lasted about 4 years, I think. But in any case, we are responsible, for the people that we love, for the people that matter in our lives. And so with Cancer, we're also turning very much to family, or to members of our team, of our tribe. We're seeing ourselves as a very cohesive group. So that's another thing that might be happening is that you're taking a lot more interest in your family, where you live, your home, your personal belongings, your finances, because you're looking at the long term. You're looking at how can I nurture this relationship, develop this relationship? How can I protect it? And it's very much about security and safety as well. So we're motivated by that whole mothering kind of energy, or you might see it if you don't want to use the word mother, it's about creating life, nurturing and developing, that kind of thing. But there's definitely a seriousness around it. There's also a sense of wanting to plant new seeds. So, and that's part of the cardinal energy here. So if you're not in a committed relationship, or you're not particularly happy with your family relationships, then you might be wanting to plant some new seeds, either with new people, or you want to kind of, turn the page, start a new chapter with a family member. And how can I how can I start this over? How can we have a blank, slate and start this? And so you'll see that in relationships too. People, making amends, or people making apologies, or they're trying to reconfirm their commitments because they might be renegotiating existing arrangements or expectations. Bottom line, this is the time to invest in the relationships that matter. Think about that. Invest. I'm going to invest my time. Maybe I'm going to invest my money into a relationship that matters. And this is a quote that I used in my article in the Power Peak. And I think it's perfect. Barbara Moore is the author of multiple tarot decks and instructional books. I don't know her chart, so I don't know where her Venus is. But this was a quote that I saw this week in one of her books, and I thought it's perfect for Venus in Cancer. Relationships just happen. They are crafted. That's it. We make them. We craft those relationships. And when I read that, it also kind of made my mind jump to a book called The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. Now, I don't know if you've read the book. It's been around forever. I mean, literally decades. A lot of people know it. If you don't, I highly, highly recommend this book. And it's not a children's book. I guess it could be, but it's just loaded with wisdom. I mean, it's truly an incredible book that you can just keep with you forever. And in this book, if you don't know it, there's a little prince, and he has traveled to another planet in the sky, and he meets a fox. And they kind of dance around with each other. But the little prince has also had this kind of situation. He met a rose on the planet, and she kind of haunts him. And, it's interesting. I'm not going to give it all away. But basically, the fox says something to the little prince about taming. And the little prince says, well, I'm looking for friends. What does it mean, tame? The fox says it's an act too often neglected. It means to establish ties. The little princess, to establish ties? The fox, just that. To me, you are still nothing more than a little boy who, just like 100,000 other little boys, I have no need of you. And you, on your part, have no need of me. To you, I am nothing more than a fox like 100,000 other foxes. But if you tame me, then we shall need each other. To me, you will be unique in all the world. To you, I shall be unique in all the world. Now, here's another excerpt. People have forgotten this truth, but you mustn't forget. You become responsible forever for what you have tamed. You're responsible for your rose. So in our analogy, we become responsible for those people that we have taken the time with to make them part of our family, to make them part of our tribe, to make them unique in all the world. And the fox says, and now here's my secret, a very simple secret. It is only with the heart that one can see rightly. What is essential is invisible to the eye. It's the time you have wasted for your rose that makes your rose so important. The most beautiful things in the world cannot be seen or touched. They are felt with the heart. Now, by the way, this author has Venus in Cancer. Not very surprisingly. But like I said, when I saw that quote by Barbara Moore, I immediately kind of thought, oh my God, that sounds like The Little Prince. And how, just that concept of we craft our relationships, we take care of them. If it's a friend or a stranger, we tame them. We spend the time with them to make them special to us, to make them somebody or something that's important. That's Venus in Cancer, to spend that kind of time to tame that person, to craft that particular relationship. So when you think of Venus in Cancer, think about that. And here again, I know we all have families that well, I shouldn't say we all do, but we have, just because somebody is a blood relative, we may have some real issues with people in our family. And, there are times that we literally go, okay, I know we're blood relatives, but we're really not tribe. We're really not family. And I think that is for all of us to figure out. So I'm not sitting here telling you, okay, you've got to have this incredible relationship with your sisters and your brothers and your aunts and your uncles and whoever it is. But I'm saying just pay attention that family and the real meaning of family, to have a tribe, to have those people that have your back. That is what Cancer is about. But sometimes, too, it probably is about taking some energy on somebody that, in a sense, is never going to reciprocate. Maybe that's part of it, too. But when you think of Venus in Cancer, just think that many things may come to you during this month between now and the 25th of August. Maybe you do have kind of a reckoning, or you have this different way of seeing your own family, your biological family. Or maybe you have this sudden urge to say, you know what, I'm going to create my own tribe. I'm going to create my own family. And I know we all feel that. We tend to belong to groups of people that we're either of like mind, or we have a shared interest, or we have shared goals. Those people become our family. But the key always is crafting the relationship, quality time spent together. So here again, if you feel like you've been ignoring your family, or things have kind of gone awry and that's not what you want, then this is a good time to just spend more time together. And even in simple ways, like just having meals together. We really have become a society where that's not a big deal. I mean, I know when I was growing up, and maybe some of you too, boy, dinner together was always the thing. You didn't have the option of not having dinner at the dinner table. It wasn't in front of the TV. It wasn't, someplace else. And it was rarely takeout, because takeout wasn't pretty much, a thing. I mean, I know as kids, we just went crazy if we got to have McDonald's. Like if our parents went out on a date and we got McDonald's, oh my God, was that special? So, this is about family, and family often is about some of those kind of old fashioned ideas, of just spending time together, and a lot of times around food or around activities that are bonding activities. And, there again, you don't have to spend a whole lot of time with it. Just let it come to you. Just let it come to you. Like, how does this feel, or what do you want to do? This is also a great time to express your creativity and artistry, especially in areas around your home. Like, you might be looking at your home going, well, who wants to eat in the dining room? It's so dark, or it's so boring, or whatever. Well, maybe you freshen it up. Or maybe in general, I would say with Cancer, it's a good time to kind of redo or to upgrade the bedrooms or the kitchen or the dining room, or maybe the family room, wherever you can spend time together. So does that mean a new throw pillow? Does it just mean bringing flowers in? Or does it just mean rearranging some things? I'm a big fan of the Chinese art of feng shui, which is basically how energy moves through a space. And just by moving things around, you can actually invite energy to flow in a different way in your space. So you don't have to go, oh my God, Venus in Cancer, I have to go out and spend a lot of money, get a new couch, get a new sofa, get a new TV, whatever it is. No, you don't. Even something as simple as rearranging. Like, for instance, think about it. Is your home arranged in a place where people can spend time together? Or is it arranged in such a way that that makes it pretty difficult for people to share the same space? So think about that. Could you move some things around? Do you have furniture that can be outside and inside? Can you just, temporarily change something up? Just a thought. Now, before we leave Venus, I also do want to go into something that's going on Friday, because it's important. One of the things that's happening, we've been talking about those planets that just recently changed signs. Saturn is at 1 Aries, Neptune is at 2 Aries, Uranus is at 0 Gemini, and Pluto 2 Aquarius. They're at the very beginning of those signs. So think about it. Whenever a planet changes signs, like Venus, like Mars, well, even the moon, when it changes, every 3.5 days, what happens? Well, when it hits those beginning degrees between 0 and 2, it's going to make a connection to those 4 planets. So that's kind of an interesting dynamic. And, I'm looking at it like, oh my God, what a welcoming committee. Because in some cases, it feels really good. It's like, hey, Saturn over there in Aries, hello, thanks for your energy. Well, Cancer is a cardinal sign, and so is Aries. And so for Cancer, when Venus moves into Cancer, it actually is a square with Saturn and a square with Neptune. And a square automatically means an adjustment. Something has to change. So come Wednesday, when Venus moves into this sign, and then by Friday, when she hits those squares with both Saturn and Neptune, and then, she hits that in conjunct with Pluto, which is what's going to happen in that situation, we're all of a sudden going to go, oh my God, and it might just kind of hit us on Friday as we feel like all this energy is changing, or there's this urgency to do something. The other thing that's interesting about the timing is that we're in the lunar cycle. Friday is when we're going to move from the first quarter of the cycle to the second. Now, when that happens, it is a square between the sun and the moon. So what happens? There's automatically an energy of there's got to be an adjustment of some sort somewhere in our lives. And that kind of uncomfortable is like, oh, these things don't quite fit. Well, then that's going to be exacerbated by the fact that Venus also is making those squares from Cancer to those planets, Saturn and Neptune and Aries. So I want you to know that on Friday, because if you're feeling uncomfortable, it is because something needs to be shifted. Something needs to be adjusted. And so don't go crazy. In fact, it's not about, oh my God, everything's falling apart. It's just you're feeling that tension of something needs to change. So I see it as this is the time that we can very thoughtfully pivot away from mindless choices and feel empowered and more in control by looking at the issues and re-strategizing. That's all it takes. It could be a very minor issue. But also, if you're involved in something that's pretty important, that has to do with a decision about a relationship or even a decision about money, I would just say, be thoughtful. Don't just make a mindless choice or decision, because then you might want to change that back. Because remember too, Mercury, the planet of thinking, it's still retrograde until the 11th of August, which means we are in the midst of changing our minds about some things. So, just keep that in mind. And I'm going to leave you with this last quote from Oprah Winfrey, because I think the words that she uses really encapsulates what I'm trying to communicate here. And by the way, she does have Venus in Aquarius, and it's square Saturn. So she knows what she's talking about. She says, I believe that every single event in life happens as an opportunity to choose love over fear. Challenges are gifts that force us to search for a new center of gravity. Don't fight them, just find a new way to stand. And it's that last line that I particularly love. This is just finding a new way to be in this energy. So instead of, you almost see these ocean waves kind of washing over you. You're standing on the shore, and you know how the waves come in. Well, you just kind of sway and move your feet a little bit in order to keep your balance. So this isn't about going, no, I'm holding fast, I'm standing right here, and I'm not going to make any changes. It's simply adjusting to that wave coming in and making that slight adjustment, finding a new center of gravity, and then a new way to stand in the situation. So if you think of it that way, you don't get mad at the ocean or, stand there and go, okay, I'm not moving my feet. Well, don't do that same thing in your life, especially on Friday. Okay? Just find a new way to stand. Find a new center of gravity. Do you think you can do that? And I'm sure that you can. All right. So with that, we are going to move on to Chiron. Before we do that, though, I am going to go over and just check on YouTube. Looks like it's working great. Hey, Jean, thank you for joining us today, and Quelly and other people that are coming in. Thank you so much for just joining us live today on the show and for posting over on YouTube. You know, I will always pay attention to your comments. And even if I don't answer them during the show or make a comment, I am watching them and I will pay attention to them. Okay, so let's launch into Chiron. Chiron is what we call an asteroid. And I'm not an astronomer, so I can't tell you the exact difference between asteroids and planets. But what I can tell you astrologically, in different systems, we use different planets. Like you're aware that in the Vedic system, they don't use Uranus or Neptune or Pluto as indicators in an astrology chart. And there's a whole reason for that. Well, when you look at the asteroids, it's the same thing. I don't remember how many there are, but there might be like 200, 300, 400 asteroids. So the truth is, we could drive ourselves crazy looking at all those asteroids out there and saying, okay, every single one has to be a psychological profile that we're talking about in the astrology chart. Well, if something really kind of, trips your trigger, then look at it and see, because, we as people, what we do, we study these asteroids. We look at these asteroids and just see what do they resonate with. We give them the meaning that they have. Remember that. We give them meaning. So collectively, astrologers, since about 1970 sometime, people have been paying a little more attention to the asteroid Chiron, and they call it the wounded healer. And some astrologers, you put it in a chart, some don't. It's the only asteroid that I look at in an astrology chart. Now, 10 years from now, could that be different? Of course it could. But this one has proven to me to be something really, really worthwhile in looking at in a person's chart. And as the title of the show or the description of the show, I said, it's those quirky little personality things that we somehow can never quite put our finger on. Maybe we go to therapy, maybe even for years we go to therapy, and we can't quite unhook from something. Well, to me, when I look at a person's chart, I'm looking at that Chiron as the wounded healer. Where is the wound? Where is that quirky little thing that we have a hard time letting go of? Maybe we just don't understand it in our personality. Now, I also like to look, by the way, at the nodes, the south node and the north node, which are mathematical points. So those are things that I will concentrate on in a chart, especially if a person is just having a real difficult time and there doesn't seem to be, a reason, let's put it that way, or something. They're like, I don't know why this, I continue this pattern. Well, once they say something like that, I'm looking at that Chiron and I'm looking at the nodes, but especially Chiron. And I have learned to really love this asteroid. And I love how enlightening it can be when we pay attention to it or when we give it a little energy. So I'm going to start with a quote from Carl Townsend that says, all healing is first a healing of the heart. So Chiron is named after the centaur in Greek mythology, who was known to be civilized, kind, and a great healer, astrologer, and teacher. And like I said, we have dubbed Chiron as the wounded healer and the healing path. And by the way, what I'm sharing with you today, I've read multiple books on Chiron, but the one that always comes back to me, the one that I really draw from, is one by Martin Lass, Lass. He wrote one that is called The Gift is the Wound. It's a new paradigm for Chiron. And, his is the book that after reading several, and I thought, well, I kind of resonate, not quite. Because here again, if I'm reading a chart and somebody's information just isn't jiving, then I kind of move on. But his stuff, I just really resonated with. And unfortunately, if you guys find out different, you could certainly let me know. His book has been out of print, I think, for quite a while. And in fact, just recently, I had loaned my book years ago to somebody. Don't remember who I gave it to, but it's been gone for probably about 15, 20 years. And so I've continually kind of about once a year, I kind of look on the internet to see if I can get another one. Well, the used copies are like $140. And so each time I go, okay, well, I've got a lot of notes from the first time I read it, so I haven't repurchased it. I don't understand why a book like that just isn't reprinted or isn't readily available. Maybe I'm looking in the wrong places, but if you look for it and you can't find it, I understand. But fortunately for me, I liked it so much, I kind of outlined some of the things that he said. And so I still have that outline and I still go back to it time and time again. But I want to give him credit because so much of my thinking is shaped by him. And there again, Martin Lass. So many of the things I am sharing with you today is directly out of his book. I do not want to take credit for it. It is right out of his book. So he talks about Chiron as being the healing path, showing us where our deepest spiritual and emotional wounds lie, and thereby giving us the key to our healing path. And he describes it as spiritual angst, a sense of loss, not belonging, being deficient in some way. It represents where we lack confidence and where we try to overcompensate. You recognize that? Do you resonate with that? How we just overcompensate for something that we're just convinced is a weakness in ourselves? That's the other thing that I think about Chiron. I think Chiron is a perceived weakness. And, in fact, if somebody really looked at it and say, go, you're not weak in that area. That's not your problem. But it's where we think it is. It's where we carry a wound that we think belongs to us. And so the more that we can just kind of go, oh, that's Chiron, that's where that's coming from, then we can start working on that healing path. And we can receive blessings and rewards because we're just being more aware of where we think, where we perceive that somehow we're lacking, that we're not good enough. And when we're acting in total denial, that's when we try to fix or heal, not only ourselves, but other people. We're always trying to fix something because we feel like we ourselves are broken. So here again, Martin Lass says, this is a new paradigm for Chiron. And he says, we tend to repress the positive in favor of dwelling on the negative. So the new paradigm says, there's nothing to fix. There's nothing to change. There's nothing to get rid of. Our life is perfect as it is. Now, here's one other thing I want to kind of astronomy-wise. What's weird about Chiron is it has a very erratic orbit. Now, ordinarily, you'll find it between Saturn and Uranus. But the truth is, it's so erratic that sometimes it can get really close to Jupiter or to Neptune. The other thing is, it spends a whole lot of time in Aries, more time than in any other sign. And it spends almost no time in the opposite sign of Libra. Now, there again, because it's just got this really odd orbit. So I can't explain those things to you, but I will say that compared to like the other planets where we can predictably say, okay, Venus stays in a sign for like 21 to 30 days. We can't say that about Chiron because it doesn't give equal attention to all the signs. So just in case you kind of got into something and you go, okay, well, how come there's so many more people that have Chiron in Aries? That's why. Chiron spends more time in Aries. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to spend a couple minutes on Chiron in all the signs and houses. So if you know your chart, maybe you could run and get it or call it up on your phone. But if you know your chart, then pay attention to Chiron by what sign is it in, but also what house is it in, because each of the signs are associated with one of the houses. And what I find is that you usually will have issues or you will resonate not only with the sign, but also with the house. And here again, I just want you to know it's amazing sometimes the kind of enlightenment, the aha moments that you can experience if you just kind of have this in the back of your mind. In fact, something interesting happened to me. I woke up this morning. I had this dream last night that was about an event that happened years ago. And it really wasn't even a big event, but it was something that kind of stuck with me because it was what I would call a psychic whack, meaning that something happened that really wasn't about me, but I took it personally. And I also, it just made me feel less than. It made me not feel worthy. And there again, the person, I mean, it wasn't even about me. It was not personal. And so when I woke up, I thought, oh my God, why did I remember that? And all of a sudden I went, Chiron. I knew it. It's because I've been thinking so much about Chiron, and it definitely relates to my Chiron. So here again, what happened wasn't even personal. It wasn't about me, but oh my God, it just kind of went straight to my heart. And so that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. We so often will perceive ourselves as being victimized or wounded, and everybody else is like, what are you talking about? That person didn't even say that to you, or that wasn't even about you. So let's talk about these things. And I would encourage you to kind of take them to heart, just kind of think about them, and let your own kind of inner guide, your inner teacher, your higher self kind of speak to you about some of these things. Because I'll tell you too, sometimes when I kind of get into a place where I'll say I'm kind of spinning with a Chiron issue, I literally, and I mean this, I'll go, shut up, Chiron. I get it. So just leave me alone. Now, it's kind of a love-hate relationship though, because I'll blame Chiron and say, okay, shut up. Quit. I don't want that little voice in my ear going, yeah, 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 yeah. But I also know it's the healing path as well. It's not just, hey, let's make Chiron the bad guy. It's about having a healing path. So let's dive right into it. So, and by the way, right now, Chiron is in Aries and has been for quite a while, but next into Taurus. But if Chiron is in Aries, and or in the first house. So this is for you guys. Now, if you know your charts, please, kind of listen up. If you've got Chiron in Aries or the first house, the wound is a profound lack or loss of self-worth, feeling undeserving of life, denying yourself, denying your identity. So the search for you, what you continually do, is you're looking for self-identity. You're looking for those things that you resonate with. And then when you're on that path, when you're denying that loss of self-worth, then what you discover is embracing a special, unique, divine design and the ability to remain firmly and gently in your own space despite the opinions of others. So see, with each one of these, and here again, this is Martin Lass, Healing Body and Soul, Chiron. It's the wound, it's the search, and it's the gift. So with Taurus, or if you have Chiron in the second house, and here again, if you know some astrology, you can almost guess or exactly what Chiron is doing because you understand the issues of Aries. What is the issue of Aries? Individuality. Identification. Here I am. This is who I am, and this is what I'm going to do in the world. So there again, use your astrology knowledge to kind of, not exaggerate, but to expand on what I'm telling you here. So Chiron in Taurus, or Chiron in the second house. Well, it's a deep insecurity. This is the wound. A core fear of being unsafe, losing your security, your abundance, and or love. A loss of trust or a deficit of values. So this may be where you find somebody who there's never enough money. No matter what the money is, they're always worried about it. Have you ever met people like that? I've met several. They are literally millionaires several times over, and all they talk about is being worried about money. And, that insecurity, it can always be taken away from me. I'm unsafe. Or, I'm not getting paid what I'm worth. If you have some issues around there, you might want to look at Taurus in the second house, especially if it is Chiron, because, are you not believing that you're worth that? So you just always have to create some kind of issue around money or safety or whatever it is. But remember, Taurus is also about having values. It's ruled by Venus. It's about having values that are important. So what are your values? Is it about having relationships or money? What is it that gives your life value? The search for you is for security and safety, trust and love, and universal values. So if you work that path, then the gift is understanding the connection between the material and the spiritual worlds. So there again, if you feel like you don't get that, you can't quite put that together, that may be the issue. Learning how to manage and increase material abundance in the physical world. And it's a return to the trust that love will always be there and was never missing. Now, remember too, you may identify with a lot of these, and that's okay. You don't have to go, oh, well, that's not mine. It doesn't apply to me. If something here, if you identify with it, go with it. But look at your own. I mean, try to find that in your own chart. And if you don't know what it is, call me on 12listen.com. I'm available, most days, but I'm also available by, scheduled appointment. So call me or get on the internet, find a free site where you can generate your chart so you can see where that Chiron is. And by the way, in a chart, it usually looks like the symbol of a key. And think of it that way. It's a key. It's a key to unlocking that unconsciousness. All right. So Gemini, if Chiron is in Gemini or the third house, it's a feeling, this is the wound, a feeling of being unable to communicate with others, verbally inept, unable to fit in socially, unintelligent, unable to see connections. And there again, I'll tell you, sometimes people with this one, they're always going, you think I'm stupid? And it's like, no, I don't think you're stupid. Or they feel like they mumble their words. They feel like nobody's listening to them. They feel like they can't communicate, like they can't connect, because that's a Gemini function. So here again, it's a perceived fear. It's a perceived weakness. So what do? Their path is understanding, trying to gain better understanding, awareness, and integration. Maybe pursuing education, but also developing their rapport with others. Maybe becoming a better speaker, maybe becoming a better listener. And when they do, it results in a gift of being unique and deeply thought out, coherent, and intuitively intelligent understanding of the way life works. It's the ability to share ideas and understandings with others, developing that rapport with others in all realms. It might even include angels or fairies or guides or animals, but working on communication and connection. Cancer. With Cancer, it's a core belief and feeling that love was lost, maybe never there to begin with. Mom never loved me. Dad never loved me. I never had a home. I never had a family. The belief that the world is not a supportive, nurturing, caring, or loving place, and a core belief that we are unlovable or abandoned. So there again, all the Cancer issues, that's the wound. So what are we searching for? We're searching for family. We're searching for roots. We're searching for reunification with mother, or the cosmic equivalent of a parent, of being cared for, the source of love, the love within. So we search for that. We work with that, and we discover and recognize that it was always there. It was never gone. We are lovable, and we have the ability to both give and receive love. It's about understanding that love and nurturing takes on many, many different forms in the world. So Leo, Chiron in Leo or in the fifth house. This is about self-expression. Remember, Leo, here I am. I'm a performer. I'm on stage. So it's the feeling that we can't express ourselves in that way. Our self-expression, our life spark or creativity, they've been lost. They're squashed. Self-worth is damaged. Now, here again, some of these sound similar. It is kind of the fire like Aries as well. But with Leo, it's like, yeah, I have no self-worth. I have no background, Where did I come from? Where's my life spark? So what do? We walk a path of looking for that value that's beyond personality and ego. That it's not just about the appearances. It's not just about who other people think we are, but finding value someplace else. It's about looking at and developing spontaneity and really embracing the freedom to sing our own song without defensiveness or guilt. Being able to let we have to practice that. And what do we get? We eventually get that permission to shine, the ability to create, self express, and celebrate, understanding that life is a gift. Okay, Virgo, the sixth house. Well, you can imagine this is about feeling incomplete, fragmented, scattered, disconnected, impure, the feeling that something is wrong with us physically, emotionally, mentally, or spiritually. Feeling like we need to be fixed, continual dissatisfaction and discontent, especially about the body. The sixth house often is about habits in the body. So, what do? We work on wholeness and soul satisfaction. We work with integrity and purity and getting things right. And when we do, then we can accept the divine plan as perfection, in balance and harmony, learning to love things and people just the way they are. We learn gratitude and the ability to integrate masses of seemingly unconnected information into a coherent picture. Okay, Libra, the seventh house, ruled by by Venus. The wound, what is it? Of course we know. Feeling alone, incomplete, separate. Where's my soulmate? Something is missing. There's a sense of imbalance in my life. So what are we searching for? The missing pieces of ourselves. Usually we're looking for them in others. We're looking for beauty and proportion and balance and creativity and grace. And so what do we finally realize? That all we need is within us already. We're complete. We're perfect. We have harmony. We don't have to have this outside thing or person to create balance within ourselves. Scorpio, or the eighth house, core feeling of being disconnected from or abandoned by spirit, a deep-seated fear of loss or death. So what do? Those people with Scorpio or the eighth house, they're looking for something esoteric. They're looking into astrology and tarot and I Ching because they're looking for a spiritual transformation, really, of their thinking, of their lives. They're really checking those things out. And they recognize an embrace of a loving spirit and creator. They realize that's who they are and that they can freely and playfully live their lives and understand that forms change. It doesn't just have one look or one meaning. Sagittarius, or the ninth house. Well, these are the seekers. So it's a feeling of meaninglessness. There's no point. I never find the truth. There's no big picture. There's no God. There's no divine plan. There's no guiding hand. So what are they looking for? They're looking for those things: meaning, the big picture, the master designer, they're looking for the higher self. And so what do they get? They find that they can embrace their innate wisdom and understanding, that it's always there. There's inner knowing. You don't have to travel the globe to find it. That the divine resides within us. Capricorn, or the 10th house. Think about it. This is work. This is reputation. Feeling unrecognized, unappreciated, unnoticed, unheard, passed over. I'm never going to be good enough. I'm never good at work, or I have to keep changing jobs. There is no structure or organization in life. Life is chaotic and it's transient, and I can't find my place. I can never find my perfect job. I can never find my perfect vocation. So what do? We use order, control, vocation, function, mastery, the desire to conquer time. We use all those Saturn functions to learn eventually to appreciate and love exactly who we are, exactly as we are, and that we have wisdom. We have an inner voice. We have a purpose that we're sharing with other people. Once again, we don't have to find these things outside of ourselves. Okay, if it's in Aquarius or the 11th house, feeling like an alien or an outsider, feeling like we're isolated, cut off, abandoned, we're different, nobody gets us, we're separated, we're alone, we're removed from humanity. And I tell you, this is not an exaggeration or a lie. I have had clients with Chiron in Aquarius, and they literally say to me, I was born at the wrong time. I was born to the wrong parents. I was born in the wrong country. Where are my people? Where are my people? My people are not here. And I just kind of laugh and I go, this has got to be Aquarius, Chiron, because they think that's it. I'm the stranger in a strange land. So they're searching for connection. They're searching for contact and a sense of belonging. They're searching for knowing this is their place. And what is their place in the big picture? So, of course, the more they work on that, then they begin to see that there is a big picture. They're soulmates. Their people are everywhere. They fit into this big jigsaw puzzle. They really do. That, yeah, they may be a little bit different, but everybody's different. And they have a voice in the cosmos. Okay, so we're making it. So here's Pisces, or the 12th house. Well, as you can imagine, this to me is the most spiritual of all of the Chirons, because this is a loss of faith or trust in the divine. There is no God, or God has betrayed me. I am victimized. I am disenfranchised by life. I wasn't worth it. I don't know what happened, but there is no divine plan at all, or there is, but I'm totally cut off from it. I'll never find it. And maybe I go from religion to religion, or spirituality to spirituality, or tool to tool, because I just can't find it. I can't find that connection. So that's what we do. We're searching for God, for oneness, for that sense of being divine and how we connect to other people. And eventually, of course, especially if we relax, we find a return to trust and faith in spirit, in God, in the universe, a return to wholeness and oneness, feeling complete and seeing nothing but love surrounding us. So I know that was very, very quick. It was very, very fast, but I hope that I whetted your appetite for Chiron and that you heard something. And there again, grab those charts and figure out your Chiron by sign and by house. And I promise you, just like me having a dream last night, it will start coming to you about how you can work your path and heal yourself, and or laugh at yourself for things that are perceived weaknesses that just aren't real. Okay, guys, well, we got to wrap it up. So thank you so much for joining me today. And next week, we'll check out Saturn and Neptune, which are hanging out pretty close together. And Mars also changes signs next week. And we also have a full moon. Remember, Mercury's still retrograde. So just take things easy, all right? All right, well, thanks for joining me. Thanks to our producer, who is Serena. And I hope that you, if you're listening to 1-2 Radio or on YouTube, please stay tuned for Empowerment with Kelly Whetstone. It's coming up next. And here's a quote of the week. I wouldn't give you 2 cents for all your fancy rules if behind them they didn't have a little bit of plain, ordinary, everyday kindness and a little looking out for the other fellow too. That's Jimmy Stewart, Venus in Cancer. This is CA signing out. Please come and find me on 12listen.com. Feel free to request a scheduled call on a day and time that's good for you. And thanks for listening to Everyday Astrology with CA Brooks on 12radio.com and live streaming on my YouTube channel by the same name, Everyday Astrology with CA Brooks, where we are changing the way we listen to Chiron.